Rain is a loser who was fired from the hero's party for being useless. However, after discovering he's actually an S-rank beast tamer, he starts collecting hot monster girls to form a new party of baddies. Before he joined the hero's party, Rain lost his parents when he was little and spent his miserable life living as a filthy loner. But when the leader of the hero's party hired him as a teammate, Rain started working as a beast tamer for minimum wage. But one day, the leader of the group, Arios, kicks him out of the hero's party, claiming he is a useless bum who can only form contracts with low-budget animals. Since this skill is not effective in combat, his only contribution is carrying their luggage. Rain is shocked to hear this, but one of the members, named Lean, claims that they are tired of protecting his miserable life and asks him to leave. They also demand Rain return his equipment because it belongs to the hero's party, and all the members, including Agath and Mina, throw insults at the poor Rain. Later that day, Rain recalls how his comrades were always rude to him, and that their harsh words were never meant to make him stronger, but simply because they never truly respected him. Just as Rain begins to dwell on his miserable life, a group of young brats approaches him and asks him to demonstrate his beast-taming abilities. So, Rain forms a temporary contract with a falcon and tells it to greet them. The youngins lose their minds over this and excitedly declare that they also want to become a beast tamer. When Rain asks why they wouldn't rather be a hero, one of the boys explains that the hero's party members are scary people, unlike Rain, who is very nice to them. They claim they want to become an adventurer and travel across the country, which sparks an idea in Rain's mind. So, a few moments later, Rain goes to the Adventurers Guild and meets the receptionist named Natalie. Since he has no idea how to register as an adventurer, when she realizes that Rain is a beast tamer, she tells him that all applicants must go through a basic trial to become a registered adventurer. But just as he completes the first half of the trial, Rain hears a scream coming from the woods. He immediately rushes to investigate and sees a giant D-rank monster called a killer tiger about to attack a helpless girl. So, Rain springs into action and uses the knife he bought from Timu to strike the tiger, but the weapon breaks on impact. As the tiger advances towards him, Rain tells the girl to run, ready to sacrifice his life for this random anime chick. But surprisingly, the girl launches herself into the air, and just as the tiger is about to strike him, she lands a powerful kick on its back, defeating the monster in an instant. Rain is shocked to see this and quickly realizes that the girl is a cat spirit, one of the rarest beings in the world. As an ultimate species, the girl has unique abilities, but when she passes out from exhaustion, Rain manages to catch her just in time. A few moments later, the girl introduces herself as Kanahda, and it turns out that her species cannot use magic, but they've evolved to have athletic abilities. When Rain asks why she was in the forest by herself, Kanahda explains that cat spirits usually live quietly deep in the mountains, but she grew bored and wanted to explore the world. She then thanks Rain for saving her life and asks him to tell his miserable life story. When Rain explains how he was fired from the hero's party, Kanahda gets furious that a kind person like him was treated like a slave. However, Rain tells her that he holds no grudges against the hero's party because he's a bit of a dork. Kanahda understands his situation, but seeing her still annoyed, Rain pats her on the head, which stirs a slight excitement in her. She then assures him that he is a strong warrior, but when Rain insists he is just an ordinary beast tamer, Kanadi asks him to form a permanent bond with her. Since only a handful of people in the world can tame cat spirits, Rain is hesitant at first. But seeing the genuine concern Kanadi has for him, he finally decides to make a pact with her to get to know her better. Kanadi is delighted by this, and Rain begins the taming process, creating a blood pact that surrounds her with magical emblems. When Kanadi accepts the deal, the taming process finally ends, and she notices the red contract symbol on her hand. Now that they are bound together for eternity, Kanadi grabs his hand and runs through the fields, while Rain wonders how a loser like him has just befriended an ultimate species with humongous jugs. Later, they head to a nearby field to gather 20 medicinal herbs for Rain's trial, where he tames a group of rabbits to spread out and collect the herbs for him. Kanadi is shocked, knowing that a beast tamer can only tame one animal at a time, which makes his ability truly exceptional. However, Rain brushes off her amazement, claiming it's no deal, which makes her even more irritated. Moments later, when Rain returns to the Adventurers Guild and turns in the items he collected, Natalie congratulates him for passing the trial. As she welcomes this smelly weeb as the newest F-rank adventurer of the Horizon Guild, Rain receives an adventurer's identity card and a small payment of 50 copper coins as a reward. Natalie claims that as the ranks go up, the adventurers will get paid substantially more. At that point, Rain realizes that he must increase his rank quickly, since that's the only way he can properly support his stupid lifestyle. As Kanade waits in the lobby, Rain approaches her and gives her the good news. She congratulates him on the promotion and seems genuinely happy for Rain becoming a registered adventurer. But just then, a loud, arrogant man approaches them, hoping to spread his mayonnaise on Kanahade's face.
What do you mean by that?
He approaches the cat spirit and wonders how an ultimate species is roaming free in their town. Then, the man starts insulting Kanada, telling her to ditch the weak-looking guy and come with him. But Kanada sticks by Rain's side like a pet dog. So, when the weirdo starts hurling more insults at them, Kanadi explains that Rain has used his ability to tame her. But the man bursts into laughter, claiming that a powerful cat spirit could never be tamed by a pathetic beast tamer. To prove his point, the man challenges Rain to an arm wrestling match, declaring that he will take Kanahate if he wins. The man grabs Rain's hand with a smug look, clearly thinking he has already won, but as soon as the match starts, Rain slams his hand onto the table with incredible force. As the man crumples to the ground in pain, Natalie appears in the scene and apologizes for the commotion. But when he grabs her skirt like a freak, she loses her temper and smashes a table over him, knocking him out cold. After things calm down, Rain looks at his own hand, completely shocked by his newfound strength. Kanadi explains that it's a side effect of their blood pact, because when a tamer forms a contract with an ultimate species, a portion of their power is transferred to the master. Rain's dumb brain had no idea this was possible, mostly because no one in history had ever successfully tamed an ultimate species before. Later, the two take on their first official quest as a team to gather medicinal herbs, but Kanade seems a little depressed as she imagined the life of an adventurer would be more exciting, like gathering rare items and rescuing captured princesses. But Rain explains that as a new F-rank adventurer, he needs to start with the basics to gain experience. To make matters worse for her, a group of bunnies that Rain is using collects a huge pile of herbs in no time, while she has barely found any. Just then, Kanahade hears a loud scream in the distance, and they immediately rush over to find a group of bandits threatening an old man. Kanahade recognizes them as members of the Ebon Fangs, a notoriously dangerous group of robbers, and suggests they fall back and get help. However, Rain knows there isn't enough time and resolves to save the old coot himself. Seeing his determination, Kanade is glad they're on the same page and gets ready to support him. As they launch a coordinated attack, Rain distracts the bandits while Kanade swoops in to protect the old man. Kanade was initially worried that her immense power might be too much for Rain's body to handle, but seeing him effortlessly controlling that power, she starts leaking yellow fluid.
Yeah, boy.
After Rain knocks out the last bandit, Kanahade is left mesmerized, realizing she is beginning to develop a serious crush on her new master. The old man thanks them for the rescue and explains that his escorts ran away, leaving him alone. He also warns them that the Ebon Fangs is a massive organization with over 100 members, and they will surely seek revenge. Hearing this, Rain makes a judgment call and decides to take out the entire organization in one sweep. Kanade tells him that taking on 100 bandits by themselves is impossible, but Rain comes up with an idea. He sends a small squirrel to scout ahead and quickly finds the bandit's base, where he shows Kanade his secret weapon. Rain explains that he can also tame insects, making the cat spirit moist once again. He then reveals his plan to tame a massive swarm of bees and use their stingers to paralyze the entire bandit group. When Kanahade worries that she's useless to him, Rain tells her to head back to the city and gather reinforcements from the guild to capture the bandits. Meanwhile, the old man's escorts, Lean and Mina from the hero's party, are arguing with their new replacement beast tamer, blaming him for the ambush. Lean yells that he's useless and should have tamed more animals to scout properly, but the man explains that taming even 2 beasts at once causes immense mental strain. Back at the bandit hideout, Rain has gathered hundreds of bees and uses his magic to amplify the paralyzing poison in their stingers and unleashes a swarm. When Kanade arrives with a group of adventurers from the guild, they find the entire Ebon Fang members on the ground. Seeing this, the adventurers are in awe that Rain has single-handedly taken down the entire group. But just as they restrain the bandits, the ground begins to shake violently, and 3 giant monsters called king lizards emerge from the darkness. Turns out the bandits were keeping them as weapons, but the lizards are untamable, and they start attacking everyone. Seeing this, Rain and Kanahade immediately spring into action and command the other adventurers to get the paralyzed bandits to safety. As Rain faces the monsters, he reflects on his past, remembering how useless he used to feel. But with Kanahade on his side, he feels truly strong. After an intense battle, Rain and Kanahade emerge from the cave, earning applause and cheers from the guild members. Just then, he looks at Kanade and realizes that with this cat chick by his side, he can do anything in the world. In the Adventurers Guild, Natalie praises them for their incredible efforts and promotes Rain to an E-ranked adventurer. With the substantial reward money, he decides to get a proper room at the inn. But since there is only one room left, Rain is forced into this awkward situation. Later that night, Kanade is thrilled to sleep in a soft, comfortable bed. But Rain gets nervous, as his limpy ding-dong has never shared a room with a woman in his life. Rain tells her that he'll sleep outside, but Kanade finds it cute to share the room. When he explains that it's weird to sleep together, Kanade explains that she does not mind, because she has complete faith in her master. Hearing this, Rain tries to give her a serious lecture about being too quick to trust strangers and warns her that it's dangerous. But Kanade looks at him with puppy eyes and says she trusts him because he has risked his life for others and has proven he's a good person. This monologue finally convinces him, and Rain agrees to stay in the room. However, when he goes to bed, Kanade watches him like P. Diddy, thinking how, despite all the pain he's experienced, he's still a kind person. She herself was always lonely, even among her kind, and never had anyone she could truly rely on. But realizing Rain is a good-hearted person, Kanade makes a promise to herself to stay by his side and help heal the wounds of his past. Ever since then, the two have been enjoying their new life as adventurers, living a laid-back life in the village. But when they visit the Adventurers Guild one day, Natalie presents them with a new high-stakes quest. She explains that a powerful villain named Guard Dog has taken over the Stride Bridge, cutting off a vital trade route. As the two listen carefully, Natalie tells them that the quest is dangerous, which is why the reward is a massive 5 gold coins. Realizing the payout could make him a millionaire, Rain accepts the mission immediately. When the two arrive at the Stride Bridge to perform their duties as adventurers, a shadow falls right over their heads, which turns out to be a massive dragon. Within seconds, the dragon descends from the sky with a ground-shaking thud, and as the dust settles, it transforms into a red-haired girl with horns and exquisite juggernauts. She introduces herself as Tanya, a member of the Dragoniod race, which is another one of the ultimate species. Tanya explains that she has been using the bridge as a training ground, looking for worthy opponents to fight. Initially, Rain is unsure if they can actually take on a dragon, but Kanade encourages him because she is also an ultimate species. When Tanya rushes towards Rain with blinding speed, he barely manages to block her strike. But the dragon girl is also impressed because she is used to defeating adventurers with a single hit. She then unleashes a torrent of fire from her mouth, causing both Rain and Kanade to leap out of the way, but the tip of Kanade's tail gets burned. Furious, Kanade lunges at Tanya, and the two ultimate species clash in a flurry of punches and kicks. Seeing an opening, Rain jumps in to help his partner, but Tanya effortlessly blocks both of their attacks, spins them around, and launches them high into the air. Tanya gathers her energy and fires a massive fireball at them, but the adventurers quickly push each other's feet at the last second, propelling themselves away to narrowly avoid the attack. Rain realizes they can't win a direct fight, and asks Kanade to buy him 3 minutes to execute his new plan. The cat girl agrees and launches herself at Tanya with full force. While the two are locked in a fierce battle, Rain closes his eyes and senses a faint presence nearby. He then uses his taming ability to locate a small bird flying around the bridge, quickly forms a contract with it, and commands it to bring his friends. Just as Kanade is starting to get tired, a massive swarm of birds descends on the bridge, relentlessly pecking at Tanya. The dragon girl mocks Rain for attacking like Usopp, but just then, her entire body goes numb, and she collapses to the floor, completely paralyzed. It turns out that the birds belong to a species whose beaks contain a potent neurotoxin that is strong enough to incapacitate even a dragon. After their victory, Rain approaches the defeated Tanya and asks her to come with them so they can talk. When they head back to the guild, Rain reports that he has successfully completed the mission, making this Natalia chick stunned into silence. But when she asks who the red-haired girl is, Tanya almost reveals her true identity as a dragon. However, Rain interrupts her and claims she is an OnlyFans model before dragging her outside. Moments later, Rain explains that she can't reveal her true identity as a dragon because it'll cause mayhem in the city. He then tells Tanya that she's free to go as long as she promises not to attack any more adventurers, but to his surprise, Tanya says she wants to stay with them. She's impressed by his miniature sausage and kindness, and asks Rain to tame her and let her join his party. Kanade immediately rejects the idea out of jealousy, but when Tanya calls her an insecure little bee, the cat girl reluctantly agrees. For a minute, Rain is not sure if humans can even tame dragonoids, let alone two ultimate species at once. Still, he decides to give it a shot and begins the taming process. To everyone's surprise, the contract is successfully formed, and Rain has managed to tame a dragonoid chick. Meanwhile, the original hero's party struggles through a dark forest, finally realizing how crucial Rain was to their group's success. So Arios decides to track him down and hire him back, assuming the weakling will gladly rejoin. He plans to use Rain to carry their luggage and clean their potty for a month and fire him once again. On the other hand, Kanade and Tanya are in the hotel room, arguing over who gets to sleep next to Rain, who has already dozed off, completely unaware of the chaos. The following day, the new party takes on their first official quest together to hunt cute monsters called slimes. While they are only F-rank monsters, they multiply quickly and have been destroying the local farm and crops. Kanade does not want to get her hands involved, complaining about how sticky they are, but Tanya claims that she can use her fireballs to eliminate the smiles in one sweep. Finally, seeing the two girls getting along, Rain looks at them, feeling happy and smiling like P. Diddy's lawyer. After searching for a while with no luck, Rain decides to get a better view, so he summons a bird and activates one of his more unique skills. He transfers his consciousness into the bird, causing his physical body to go limp and slump against Tanya's moist thighs. But just then, the bird goes over to the girls, and Rain's voice tells them about his ability to shift a part of his consciousness into another animal. Kanade is amazed by his seemingly endless list of overpowered abilities, while Tanya jokes about what she could do with his unconscious body. Meanwhile, the bird soars into the sky and asks the girls to take care of his human body. From the sky, Rain leads them directly to a clearing where a bunch of slimes are gathered like white Zetsu army. But before Kanade can leap into the sticky mess, Tanya stops her and asks Rain if he can use magic. When he explains that he can only manage a weak fireball, barely enough to light a candle, Tanya tells him to experiment with his fire magic at the slimes anyway. Realizing this is a perfect opportunity, Rain focuses his energy and launches a fireball, and to his shock, it erupts in a massive explosion, wiping out most of the slimes in a single blow, and leaving reward crystals on the ground. Seeing him confused, Tanya explains that Kanade gave him a portion of her immense physical strength. In the same way, forming a contract with her, a dragon, has granted him a share of her colossal magical power. So, Rain now possesses one of the strongest magical affinities in the world, but suddenly more slimes emerge from the forest. Tanya declares that they will be his training targets and tells him that if he's going to be their master, he needs to learn to control his new power. The limpy loser reluctantly agrees, and with Tanya's guidance, he spends the rest of the afternoon practicing his magic. Back at the guild, they collect a massive reward for their work, and for the rest of their day, the three go shopping and enjoy a lavish dinner. Rain is shocked by how much his two companions can eat, as they devour all the food in the restaurant. During the meal, the girls get curious and ask Rain where he learned to be such a skilled beast tamer. He hesitates for a moment, so they quickly tell him he doesn't have to talk about it if it's painful. But seeing that the girls genuinely care about him, Rain begins his story from his past. Rain grew up in a village filled with beast tamers, and his parents taught him how to connect with animals. But his happy life was shattered one day when his parents were busy, prompting him to go out to the forest to train alone. Rain was so focused on his training that he didn't notice a red glow in the sky. So when he went back to the village, he was shocked to find everything burned to the ground, leaving him as the only survivor. Eventually, other adventurers adopted him, but Rain was always treated poorly, and they often forced him to do disgusting work. This was his life for almost a decade, but one day when Arios invited him to join his team, the poor boy accepted the deal without hesitation. Rain wanted to use his ability as a beast tamer to prevent the kind of tragedy that destroyed his home and make a difference in the world. However, he was never treated like an ally. Instead, he was forced to carry luggage and clean the potties of other members. As he finishes the story, Rain apologizes to the girls for acting like a wussy, but Kanade grabs his hand and consoles him. She finally understands why Rain always risks his life to save other people, so that they don't have to suffer the same sadness he went through. Tanya also agrees, and she claims that his kindness is probably his greatest strength and that she is proud of her master. For a moment, Rain is convinced that all the trauma he endured throughout these years has finally led to a happy conclusion. But just then, he realizes that the girls have turned radical, and they are furious at the hero's party, swearing to exact revenge on them. The following day, the trio heads out to hunt a group of low-level orcs. Tanya is enjoying herself and confidently blasts a few orcs with her fiery breath, but Rain tells her to remain vigilant. However, Tanya scoffs at him and claims that no orc will even manage to touch her. She then proceeds to exterminate a few monsters, but fails to notice one hiding like Jeffrey Epstein. Suddenly, the orc grabs her leg and pulls her to the ground, while another orc lunges at her from behind with a knife. But before it can inflict any damage, Rain steps in front of Tanya and takes the stabbing, while Kanade kicks the final orc away. Realizing she put her master in danger, Tanya goes into a mild depression, but Rain uses healing magic on himself and assures her that everything's fine. Even when they reach the town, Tanya is quiet and distant, but when Rain approaches her, the dragon girl apologizes immediately. However, he simply pats Tanya on the head and claims that as long as his chicks are safe, nothing else matters. Later that night, while Rain goes to sleep, Tanya watches him in awe, wondering how someone can be so kind. Recalling the incident from earlier, she gets a warm feeling in her ungabungs, realizing that she might have a huge crush on her master. The following day, Tanya suggests that Rain should use some of his reward money to buy better equipment and a proper combat weapon. But as the trio heads towards the market, Rain suddenly freezes in his tracks, coming face to face with his old boss. Rain has moved on from his past life, so he ignores the hero's party, but Arios starts insulting him, calling him a coward and a Mr. Beast fan. When Tanya jumps in to defend her master, Arios realizes that the group consists of two powerful ultimate species. He mocks Rain once again, asking if he is the servant. But this makes Kanahati incredibly mad, and she proudly declares that Rain is their master. Shocked by this proclamation, Arios finally reveals his true intent and asks Rain to join his team. He explains that their next mission is to explore the Lost Woods, a magical forest whose paths constantly shift, making it nearly impossible to navigate. He wants Rain's help to complete the mission, and the other party members chime in, calling it a great opportunity. However, Rain declines the offer like a G and turns to leave, but Mina stops him, asking for a moment of his time. She explains that deep inside the forest, there is a noble relic called the Shield of Truth, which is essential to defeating the Demon King. Mina tells him that if the Demon King is not defeated, he will attack all the villages in the country, resulting in millions of casualties. This strikes a nerve in Rain's stupid little mind, and he gets determined to save the people in his country. Rain reluctantly agrees to help the hero's party in acquiring the shield, which ignites a creepy smile on Arios' face. But before they team up, Kanade and Tanya intervene, declaring that if Rain is going to help, the hero's party must first get on their knees and apologize for how they treated him. The thought of begging his servant for help makes Arios extremely mad, but Tanya threatens to burn them to ashes if they refuse. In a fit of rage, Arios tells Rain to keep his girlfriends on a tighter leash, calling the girls unmannered animals. But this results in Rain smashing his face, sending him flying like a sack of potatoes. Rain declares that he will never tolerate anyone disrespecting his friends. And seeing the fire in his eyes, Arios challenges him and his party to a duel. Everyone agrees to fight it out. Kanade is paired against the knight named Agath, who looks awfully similar to Johnny Sins.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
As the knight charges at her with full force, Kanade simply dodges his attacks and counters with a kick so deadly that it nearly shatters his sword. She then unleashes a barrage of strikes, each one hitting the baldy like a sledgehammer. Furious, Agath activates his secret Hellfire technique and charges at her, but Kanade kicks the sword away like a garbage bag. Agath is now on the verge of unleashing his final desperate attack, but Kanade tells him she hasn't even used half of her power. The realization that this chick is toying with him sends a chill down Agath's spine. But just then, Kanade vanishes into thin air and suddenly delivers a brutal kick that knocks him out cold. On the other hand, Tanya is paired with the two mages of the hero's party, Lean and Mina. Thinking they are the most powerful witches in Japan, they launch their most powerful spells at her, but Tanya stops them by simply snapping her fingers. Lean starts getting paranoid and unleashes even more brutal attacks on her, but Tanya gobbles them up like a sausage in a girl's hostel. Seeing them struggle, Tanya explains that she is using Material Canceller, an ancient art that can deconstruct a magical spell from its core. The hero's party mages realize they are no match against her, so they decide to merge all their remaining powers into one last attack. However, Tanya turns up the heat and summons the magic of the ultimate Dragon Queen, turning the entire sky red as hundreds of magical crystals materialize above them. As she begins chanting a legendary spell to unleash the crystals, Leon and Mina are overcome with terror, convinced that they are about to die. As they break down in tears, begging and pleading for forgiveness, Tanya gets ready to strike them down. But just when the hell breaks loose, she cancels the attack, revealing it was just special effects. On the other hand, Rain faces his former boss and Arios rushes in to finish the fight immediately. But Rain manages to dodge every single one with minimal damage. He realizes that while Arios is fast in combat, his power is weaker and more predictable compared to Tanya's overwhelming strength. Suddenly, Rain catches Arios by surprise and lands a heavy punch to his gut, leaving him wondering how a weak beast tamer became so strong. Rain is not a big fan of gatekeeping, so he reveals the truth. All those years he spent carrying their luggage, he wasn't just watching. He was carefully studying their movements and their fighting styles, just as he would with any animal he wanted to tame. Realizing that Rain knows his weaknesses, Arios decides to channel his magical abilities and fires a powerful lightning bolt. But Rain counters it with his massive fireball and easily cancels out the hero's attack. Arios starts getting desperate, and he unleashes a barrage of different spells, but Rain continues to evade them like taxes. Just as Arios lunges for a final strike, his body suddenly goes numb, and the so-called hero collapses on the ground. Standing victorious over his former boss, Rain explains how he used his beat tamer skills to win this fight. Since he is still furious about the cruel things Arios said to his friends, Rain drives one last punch beside Arios' head, leaving a deep crater as a warning. With the battle finally over, Kanade and Tanya rush over to him, each having won their respective fights. A few hours later, Rain and his girls arrive at the entrance to the scary-looking Lost Woods. Hoping to finish the job quickly, Tanya suggests they burn the entire forest to the ground and look for the shield afterwards. But Rain tells her to shut her trap, explaining that their mission is to find the Shield of Truth without damage, because it is a legendary relic that can only be wielded by the hero. The girls are still annoyed by the fact that they are helping the hero's party, but Rain insists that finding the shield is necessary to save the world from the Demon King. Realizing that their master has made up his mind, they finally agree to support him. Since the forest is extremely vast, Rain forms a bond with a small bird, and using his assimilation skill, he sends his consciousness into the sky to scout a path through the woods. A few moments later, Rain finds what seems to be a direct route to the center of the forest, but no matter how much they walk, they end up right back where they started, making them slightly frustrated. Rain cannot understand how they arrived at the same place, even though they were walking in a straight line. However, Tanya suspects that some kind of powerful magic is at play, and activates an ability called Material Search. This prompts a glowing red light to emanate from her, leading them to a large, ancient tree. She explains that the tree is the source of a powerful illusion magic that has been altering their perception and changing the layout of the forest to keep them away. As Kanade prepares to punch the magical tree out of frustration, a voice echoes from within, telling them to leave the forest. Just then, a small winged figure named Sora emerges, and Rain instantly recognizes her as another member of the ultimate species called the fairies. Turns out that fairies are legendary beings who possess magic even more powerful than dragonoids, but they are also known to despise humans and haven't been seen in over 200 years. Rain tries to have a peaceful conversation, but Sora tells him to leave the forest and refuses to talk. She tells him that his face looks like an expired peanut butter jar, and even threatens to unalive them. However, when Rain tries to reason with her, Sora launches a powerful magical attack, forcing them to run away in fear. Once they reach a safe area, Rain comes to an understanding of the entire fairy situation. He believes that Sora's intense hostility must be connected to why she is protecting the Shield of Truth, so he wants to try to communicate with her one last time, believing he can win her trust. Meanwhile, realizing that Rain will not back down, Kanade and Tanya are forced to agree to his plan. The trio soon returns to the giant tree, and Rain tells Sora that he only wants 5 minutes of her time. He tells the fairy that she can him them if she wants, but asks her to spare the lives of Kanade and Tanya. As Sora prepares a barrage of magical arrows pointed right at them, Rain holds the girls back. He knows from his years of experience as a beast tamer that the only way to earn the trust of a frightened creature is to show that you are not a threat, even if it means putting yourself in momentary danger. Suddenly, Sora fires her arrows, and she is shocked to see that Rain does not try to escape. She always believed that humans are vile creatures and knows them as monsters who burned her home and killed her people. However, Rain promises that he is different and pleads with her to trust me, bro. Despite this, Sora believes that the human is trying to trick her into submission and launches yet another attack. But this time, Tanya and Kanade are forced to intervene, and they march in front of their master to block the attack. They explain how Rain is dim-witted, but an extremely kind person who saved them when everyone else wanted to use them for their power. Sora has no idea what to think, but the sight of two ultimate species protecting a human is definitely an odd sight, even for her. So, at last, she decides to trust this irritating bunch and listen to what they have to say. When Rain explains that the Shield of Truth is the only thing that can defeat the evil Demon King, Sora reveals that the shield is hidden behind a powerful barrier that protects the secret fairy village. She claims that the barrier cannot be taken down as it destroys the illusion and allows all the goons to pillage her village. However, Sora promises to uphold an ancient fairy pact with the heroes of the past, and she teleports behind the barrier and emerges with the Shield of Truth. But just as they are about to leave, Rain notices a deep sadness in Sora's eyes and asks if something is wrong. The fairy is clearly disturbed by something, but she hesitates for a while, afraid of putting them in even more danger. However, Rain insists that he can't walk away knowing someone is in pain, and Kanade and Tanya also assure her that they can handle all kinds of crazy stuff. Realizing that her pleas will be answered, Sora tells them the truth about her twin sister named Runa. In the past, they used to guard the barrier together, but one day they abandoned their post to let their boyfriends pin them down. However, the girls were immediately ambushed by a horrifying monster from the Demon King's army called Shadow Knight. Since the monster can easily deflect magical attacks, he captured Runa. Sora quickly went to the fairy village chief for help, but he refused, claiming Runa's life as a sacrifice to keep the village safe from future attacks. Sora starts welling up with tears, recalling the events of her traumatic past. She still hasn't forgiven herself for abandoning her sister, but just then, Rain gently wipes the tear from her face and assures the fairy that her burden is now their responsibility as well. Though she can hardly believe his words, Rain promises to save Runa no matter what it takes. Overwhelmed with emotions, Sora runs into his arms, finally letting out all the pain she's been holding inside. However, Sora tells them that they need to hurry since the Shadow Knight has given her an ultimatum. She must deliver the village's protective barrier by sundown, or Runa will be fed to the dogs. Since they cannot afford to act like a bunch of girls, Sora entrusts Rain and his crew with her sister's fate, and the group heads out to confront the Shadow Knight. Soon enough, Rain finds out that the monster is in the nearby mountain and notices Runa hung like chicken tandoori. They immediately begin their attack with Rain, launching a massive fireball, but since the magic has no effect against the knight, it only acts as a notification. As the evil knight turns its gaze towards the harmless explosion, Kanahade leaps from the trees above, delivering a powerful kick that sends the creature staggering backwards. The strike is complemented by Rain, and he closes the distance by landing a heavy punch to its gut. This coordinated attack catches the Shadow Knight completely off guard, and it growls like an angry father, wondering aloud if Rain is the hero they talk about in the ancient texts. However, the ordinary beast tamer claims that he's here just to save Runa from captivity. The knight realizes that he can't win a fight against two warriors, so he extends his sword towards the captured fairy. But before he can inflict any damage, Tanya makes her appearance and manages to block the attack, successfully breaking Runa's shackles. Now that the fairy is safe, Kennedy and Ryan continue their attacks against the knight, but they can't seem to hurt the monster at all. Just as he blocks their combined attacks, the knight spins its massive body to create a powerful tornado inside the cave. This force sends debris flying everywhere, forcing Rain to fall back, as he quickly discusses a new plan with Kanahade. Since brute force isn't enough, Rain closes his eyes and allows his consciousness to spread around the forest. He then activates his taming skills, reaching out to find and form a quick contract with a nearby swarm of bees. Rain understands that their poison won't truly harm the magical armor of the knight, but they will provide the critical distraction he needs. So he unleashes the swarm, and just as planned, the knight gets distracted, trying to swat the bees around him. At that moment, Rain activates a unique tamer spell and pours some of his magical energy directly into Kanahade's moist juggernauts. A warm, powerful golden aura envelops her, as he temporarily boosts her physical power to its absolute limit. Feeling an explosive surge of energy coursing through her, she rushes towards the distracted knight. Kanahade suddenly unleashes a devastating punch, and the blow connects with immense force, tearing a hole straight through the knight's body. This causes the monster to disintegrate like Obito's regenerated clones. A few moments later, the group reunites Runa with her sister, and the two fairies hug each other. Sora thanks them profusely as tears of joy stream down her face, while Runa, who has a much more playful personality, immediately starts teasing Rain for being a simp. Even though the twins look perfectly identical, their demeanors are completely different. As they chat, Sora reveals that they can no longer live in a village that abandoned one of them, but they are too afraid to survive alone in the dangerous forest. Immediately, Kanahade jumps in and invites them to their group, and after Rain's approval, the fairies happily accept him as their master. For a moment, Rain is not sure if he can handle 4 ultimate beasts, since a normal beast tamer can only tame 1 animal at a time. But encouraged by Tanya's unwavering faith in him, Rain decides to give it a shot. He bites his finger and begins the ritual, designing a new magical structure for taming magical beings like fairies. Within seconds, the glowing ropes surround both the girls, and soon after, Sora and Runa successfully form a pact with Rain. This causes a heavy strain on Rain's stamina, but his side pieces rush to catch him just in time. A few moments later, Rain meets with the hero's party to deliver the Shield of Truth. But Arios is skeptical of him, wondering if he brought a counterfeit shield. Since they couldn't complete the task in a week, Rain's speed of delivery raises many alarms. However, Mina carefully monitors the shield and assures the group that it is unmistakably genuine. As Rain collects his reward of 20 gold coins and prepares to leave, Agath stops him, hoping to stick him inside a washing machine. The Japanese Johnny Sins admits that the hero's party is struggling without Rain's support. With a surprising respect in his voice, he formally asks Rain to rejoin them, and even promises better pay and mutual respect. All the other members agree, but Rain looks over his new friends waiting for him. By now, he has already found what he was looking for all his life, and it wasn't money or respect, but a real family. So, Rain declines the offer and proceeds to walk away. The hero's party is not used to humiliation, so Arios gets furious, and he secretly vows that he will find a way to eliminate Rain and his group of ultimate species. On the other hand, Rain explains that Arios, the hero, is blessed by the gods with a special ability called Limit Break, which allows him to grow infinitely stronger to face the Demon King. However, the girls collectively point out that Rain is also getting stronger, and suggest that he keep taming the ultimate species. In that manner, he will one day become strong enough to fight the Demon King without relying on the hero's party. Rain is shocked by this theory because he has spent his entire life being called a weak idiot. He knows he's not strong yet, but with his friends standing by him, Rain starts to believe he might become a hero after all. The next morning, Rain wakes up to find his small inn room is getting a little crowded, as his 4 companions are rubbing their biological jellies all around the bed. At breakfast, Tanya claims that since Rain is now growing stronger, he needs better equipment. Since he has more people to take care of, the limpy loser agrees. So later that day, the group decides to spend the day in town shopping for a new weapon. As they walk through the bustling streets, the fairy twins, Sora and Runa, cling to Rain's arms, intimidated by the large crowds. Since this is their first time in a human city, the girls are overwhelmed with mixed emotions, wondering if the humans will attack them. Rain tells them it's fine, but just then, their trip is interrupted by a group of adventurers who recognize Tanya. They approach her with deep respect, praising her strength from when she defeated them at the Stride Bridge. While everyone is shocked to see this, a random shopkeeper gives Kanahati a fresh apple, thanking her for some help she provided a few days earlier. Sora and Runa watch in awe as Kanahati and Tanya have practically become humans, just when a group of youngins approaches Rain. Seeing his female companions, they ask if the girls are his wives, causing Runa to blush deeply. At this point, Sora almost uses her magic to show the youngins a magic trick, but Rain quickly stops her, quietly reminding the twins they must keep their identities a secret for some time. Moments later, they come across the best weapon shop in the city and proceed to enter cautiously. It turns out that this shop is run by a dwarf blacksmith named Gantz, who looks like a puked mashed potato. The dwarf immediately berates them for staring at them, but Rain quickly mediates the conversation and claims he just wants to buy a weapon. In response, Gantz rudely tells him, pick whatever he likes, making the girls slightly skeptical of the quality of his weapons. While looking around, Runa finds a whip and begins imagining all the perverted ways Rain could use it in the bedroom, earning her a smack from her sister. Just then, Rain finds a dagger that catches his eye, but as he inspects it, he feels that something is off about the quality. Just then, another adventurer storms in, asking for the best sword in the shop, so Gantz hands him a shiny-looking but poorly made weapon. The adventurer pays a hefty price and leaves happy, completely unaware that he's been scammed. Seeing this, Rain confronts the old blacksmith, stating that all the weapons on display seem weak. A wide grin spreads across Gantz's face, and he admits that Rain has an amazing eye for detail. He explains that all the weapons in his showroom are just pieces of metal he forges as a test. He's grown tired of arrogant adventurers who believe an expensive sword will automatically make them powerful, only to discard his work when they get bored. So, Gantz hides his true masterpieces, waiting for a customer who has a ding-dong big enough to handle his craftsmanship. The dwarf then reveals his collection of real weapons, the ones that radiate power and artistry. Tanya is a big believer in strength and craftsmanship, so she instantly bonds with the blacksmith over his philosophy. Impressed that a beast tamer like Rain could sense the soul of the weapons, Gantz promises to forge him a personalized weapon worthy of his skill. However, since he is completely out of mithril, a rare ore he needs to do his work, Gantz gives them permission to visit the mining site to extract the mineral. A few hours later, Rain and his flock of jiggling jellies head to the Adventurers Guild. It's packed with people, and they soon learn that the Heroes Party is holding open recruitment for new members. Rain sees them from across the room and looks down for a moment as a memory of his past resurfaces on his face. However, Kanade and Tanya notice this and move closer to comfort his diminishing aura. He then gives them a reassuring smile and they proceed to the counter where Natalie greets them and meets the twins. After some discussion, Rain takes on an official quest to investigate the mithril mine for Gantz. He learns that the mine, which should be full of mithril, has mysteriously run dry in recent days. When Gantz arrives to formalize the request and asks about payment, Rain tells him the only reward he wants is the personalized weapon he was promised. The old dwarf is moved by this response, so he promises to forge Rain the best weapon he has ever made. The following day, as the group heads toward the mine, it becomes clear that Sora and Runa has almost zero stamina. Having spent their lives inside a magical barrier, they quickly become exhausted from walking, so Rain uses his scouting skills to find a nearby lake where the girls can rest their dumpers and oongabungas. The girls are excited by the water and immediately ask to go for a swim, so Rain agrees to watch their luggage and tames a couple of rodents to keep an eye on them while he takes a quick power nap. While the girls are having fun in the cold water, Sora and Runa get envious of Tanya and Kanahati's humongous set of containers. But just then, a fish bites Kanahati's tail, and she lets out a sharp scream. Thinking they're being attacked, Rain jolts awake and rushes to the lake, only to find all four of them completely unboxed. Filled with embarrassment, he apologizes profusely, but the girls realize that he was simply worried about them and tell him to chill out. A few moments later, they finally arrive at the mithril mining site, and Rain immediately senses something is wrong. He then spots an eagle circling over their head in a rather unnatural pattern. Just then, two armed men emerge from the mine to investigate, but before they can even react, Tanya and Kanadi move like lightning, knocking both men unconscious without injuring them. They need information about the mithril mine, but since the men are out cold, Sora and Runa step forward, offering to use their fairy magic called Memory Search. As the girls peer into their minds, they notice that a large, organized group of thieves is responsible for stealing all the mithril. As a reward for their help, the twins ask for head pats, which Rain happily gives them, much to the jealousy of his other two companions. After processing the information, Rain tells his group to get ready, because based on the bird's movements, he is certain that the mithril thieves have a beast tamer of their own. Inside the mithril mine, the main group of thieves is notified that their scout members have been defeated. The enemy beast tamer gets furious and promises to exact revenge on the attackers, while Rain and his crew slowly walk inside the mine. Before they can prepare for an attack, Rain's party descends upon them. The thieves' mages launch a massive fireball, but Sora and Runa step forward, calmly casting a spell that absorbs the attack completely. The mages try again, but the twins use a counterspell, extinguishing their magic at the source. While the mages are left powerless, Tanya and Kanadi make quick work of the rest of the thieves, knocking them out with calculated strikes. Now that the goons are taken care of, Rain confronts the group's leader, who is also a beast tamer like him. When he asks what they want, Rain tells him that he is here to help Gantz and his sword-making business, making the enemy even more furious. But when Rain tells the man to surrender, the tamer lunges at him. Rain easily deflects his attack, and within seconds, he knocks the beast tamer to the ground with a single punch. Acting like Draco Malfoy, the enemy tamer plays his final card and activates a powerful summon, causing a terrifying creature to emerge from the depths of the mine. Rain and his crew recognize the monster as a B-rank monster called a behemoth and claim that taming such a beast is practically impossible. Hearing this, the enemy beast tamer reveals his secret and explains how he has practically raised the behemoth like its mother. Due to this bond, he claims he does not need to tame this beast to control it. Suddenly, the behemoth roars and slams its fist into the ground, causing the entire mine to shake and crumble. When debris begins falling from the ceiling, Rain knows he can't fight in these conditions, so he signals Kanahade with his plan. The girl understands immediately and begins hurting the unconscious thieves outside the mine for their safety. Meanwhile, the fairy twins are worried about leaving Rain by himself, but the Giga Chad assures them that he'll be fine. The enemy beast tamer has gained a newfound confidence using this monster, and the battle continues. On the other hand, Tanya walks outside the mine and agrees to watch over the prisoners, while a worried Kanade rushes back in to assist her master. Inside the collapsing mine, Rain is struggling to dodge both the falling rocks and the behemoth's relentless attacks. Just as a massive boulder is about to crush him, Kanade appears, pulling him out of the way at the last second. After finding out from Kanahade that everyone is taken to a safe location, Rain quickly explains the new plan. He will act as a distraction to confuse the behemoth, while Kanahade takes control of the enemy beast tamer's flagpole. Rain explains that, since the monster is bound to its master's will, capturing the enemy beast tamer is the key to stopping this madness. Just then, the man appears right in front of them, promising to eliminate Rain and his chick to protect his illegal mining operation. Suddenly, the behemoth charges out of nowhere, forcing the two to spread out in panic. So, Rain distracts the monster with a fireball, and Kanade uses the opening to subdue the enemy beast tamer. However, the man refuses to lose, so he screams a command for the behemoth to continue its rampage, even if it means they all die in the collapsing cave. This causes the monster to become even more paranoid, and as Rain dodges another devastating blow, he knows he has to try something drastic before the entire mountain crumbles into dust. So, Rain decides to trust in the power his friends have given him, and unleashes the full potential of his own taming abilities. He focuses all of his energy, not on the monster, but on the magical bond between the behemoth and its master. In an instant, the behemoth freezes mid-swing, and the taming emblem on the enemy tamer's hand disappears. Rain has just managed to use his power to overwrite the existing beast contact, severing the connection and taking control of the behemoth for himself. The thief is in disbelief, screaming that he spent his whole life raising the creature. But just then, the confused monster turns on his former master like Orochimaru. To save the thief from being killed by his own creation, Rain is forced to put the behemoth down with a powerful attack right on its chest. Outside the cave, the captured thieves confess everything. It turns out that they were all aspiring adventurers who had been scammed by Gantz. They bought his worthless display weapons, and stealing his mithril was their misguided attempt at revenge. Later, when Gantz hears this, he is filled with shame and regret, realizing that his test was the root cause of the whole incident. Despite this, Rain comforts him, telling him that everyone makes mistakes, and encourages him to make things right by dedicating himself to his craft from now on. Back at the Heroes Party headquarters, Arios is holding interviews for a new beast tamer, but he rejects every single applicant. He scoffs at one tamer for only being able to control a single beast and asks if he can tame an ultimate species. However, the main shrieks in horror, claiming that the ultimate species can never be tamed by a human being. Seeing this, Mina points out that they are turning away the strongest tamers in the nation simply because they don't compare to Rain. But Arios gets furious at her and tells her to go to bed. While his desire for revenge continues to grow, he clutches a strange dark ring in his hand that's eerily similar to the one inside Kinder Joy. The next morning, Rain takes Sora and Runa into town for breakfast, while the others sleep in. They discover a hot dog stand, and the twins absolutely love the taste. While they eat, they ask Rain what new powers he gained from forming contracts with them. Kanade gave him strength, and Tanya gave him magic, but Rain admits he hasn't felt any change from his pact with the fairy sisters. The twins look devastated by this response, worried that they are useless to him. However, he quickly pats them on the head to reassure them. Like a veteran simp, Rain explains that he doesn't need to gain anything from them. After being used and discarded by the Heroes Party, all he ever wanted was to find true friends who would stand by his side. They are his precious comrades, and that is more than enough. His heartfelt words make the annoying happy, but just as they are about to head back, a smug nobleman and his guards block their path. The man introduces himself as Edgar, the son of the lord who rules the entire city of Horizon, and demands that the fairies give up their innocence to him. While the girls get scared, Edgar commands Sora and Runa to come with him to satisfy his desires. Annoyed by their defiance, Edgar snaps his fingers and his personal guards surround Rain, intending to take the twins by force. Rain claims that he will never give up his friends, so when the guards attack, he knocks them all out like a G. Realizing that minor threats won't work, Edgar resorts to a crueler tactic. He orders his remaining guards to point their weapons at the innocent civilians in the plaza, taking them all hostage. With a sinister look on his face, Edgar declares that the civilians are just tools for him to get what he wants. At this point, Rain is caught in an uncomfortable situation as he can't save everyone at once. Sora and Runa offer to use their powerful fairy magic, but Rain cannot let them reveal their true identities in front of everyone, since it'll ruin their chance at a normal life. As he assesses the situation, Rain feels a new power surge within him. He realizes he has gained a new ability to cast multiple spells simultaneously from his contract with the fairies. So, Rain summons dozens of small magic sigils, each one generating a non-lethal fireball. He then unleashes the volley, and in a flash of light, all of Edgar's guards are disarmed and unconscious, while all the civilians leave unharmed. Defeated like a noob in Fortnite, Edgar swears to exact revenge and flees the scene. while the townspeople thank Rain for his heroism. Just then, an old woman warns him to leave the city immediately, fearing the Lord's retaliation. From a distance, Arios watches the scene unfold with a sinister smile, pointing the dark ring in Rain's direction. Back at the inn, Rain learns the true extent of Edgar's depravity. The nobleman has a history of kidnapping any woman he finds attractive, treating them like toys in his mansion. His father, the Lord of the City of Horizon, uses his power and wealth to silence any victims and cover up all of his sons' crimes. Hearing this, Tanya becomes furious and wants to march to his mansion and burn it to the ground. However, Rain understands that they need to be more careful because he can't let the people of Horizon spiral into chaos. For a moment, he feels helpless, thinking he's just a normal beast tamer against such a corrupt system. But Kanade and Tanya see the resolve in his eyes, and realizing he wants to save everyone, they promise to support him no matter what. With his friends by his side, Rain declares that they will free the city from its corrupt rulers. Later that night, Edgar's father gets paranoid hearing the recent news about the ultimate beast, but Edgar tells him to grab his wrinkled nuts and leave the town. The moment he's gone, Edgar summons the captain of the Knight's Order, a man named Gillet. He then pays the captain a hefty bag of gold coins and orders him to find and eliminate Rain. Once the captain leaves, Edgar rings a bell, and a small, terrified beast girl is brought into the room. He then unleashes all his frustration from the day's humiliation on the poor girl, brutally beating her as she wishes for someone to save her. The following morning, Rain goes to the headquarters of the Knight's Order to file a formal complaint about Edgar's actions. However, a knight dismisses the incident as a Twitter drama and warns Rain that making false accusations against the Lord's son is a crime punishable by execution. At this point, Rain realizes that the entire Knight's Order is in Edgar's filthy little pocket. Just as he leaves the building, a woman emerges from the alley and introduces herself as Stella, the vice captain of the Knight's Order. She tells Rain that she is ashamed of what the Order has become. She feels useless, explaining that most of the knights, including her captain, have been corrupted by the Lord's money, turning a blind eye to his family's crimes. However, Stella claims that she has heard of Rain's heroic deeds and asks for his help to arrest Gillet and the other corrupt knights, hoping to restore justice to Horizon. Rain is hesitant at first, but seeing her genuine conviction, he agrees to cooperate with her. Over the next few days, they formulate a plan to eradicate corruption from the town it leads. Rain also visits Gantz, who has finished his personalized weapon, and later that night, they set out on their mission. Gillet receives a false tip that evidence of his corruption is stored in a remote warehouse, so he gathers all of his loyal knights and heads there, planning to destroy the evidence. But as they enter the dark building, the massive gates slam shut and are instantly frozen solid by the Twin Fairies' magic. One by one, the knights are ambushed and knocked out in the darkness. Equipped with his new S-rank gauntlet from Gantz, Rain attacks like a PUBG sniper and manages to take them all down. At last, Gillet is the only man standing, as he somehow fends off all the attacks. When he notices Stella standing with Rain, he gets even more furious. Stella tells him to surrender, revealing they have all the evidence they need, but Gillet refuses, mocking the woman for choosing justice over Bitcoin. This sparks a fierce clash between the two former comrades, and for a moment, Gillet gains the upper hand, but Stella recalls the memory of the honorable knight he once was, and strikes him down in a fit of rage. On the other hand, Edgar is venting his frustration on the Beast Girl again, enraged that his knights have been arrested. He gets worried thinking about Rain coming to slash him next, but just then, Arios appears in his window. He tells Edgar that Rain is far more powerful than he can imagine, and that he has several ultimate species at his command. So, Arios tosses him the dark, cursed ring, telling him that it contains the power he needs to eliminate Rain and continue his reign of terror over the city. Inside a dark cell, a fox girl named Nina remembers her happy life in an orphanage. She was surrounded by friends and people who cared about her, but that peaceful existence feels like a distant memory. All she does is wish for someone to come and save her from the waking nightmare she has been forced to endure. Meanwhile, at the front gates of the Lord's Grand Mansion, Stella and her loyal knights announce that Captain Gillet has been arrested for corruption, and that they are there to investigate Edgar. However, the mansion guards stop them from entering, and instead call for reinforcements. This causes Stella, Kanate, and Tanya to be completely surrounded by the Lord's private army. From a balcony high above, Edgar smirks down at them like an Asian Dumbledore. Thanks to the cursed item he received from Arios, he has no fear of Rain's ultimate species, so he watches the battle erupt at the front gate, confident that the sheer number of his soldiers will overwhelm the enemies. On the other hand, Rain, Sora, and Runa use the chaotic battle as a distraction and sneak into the mansion's dungeons. Runa immediately activates her material search magic and manages to trace the flow of energy in the building. This enables her to locate all the kidnapped people, but she also detects a single massive magical signature. Runa claims that this power source is so immense and unusual that it could only belong to another ultimate species. Rain is left wondering if this person is a friend, a foe, or perhaps just another victim. Either way, he decides to investigate this powerful stranger himself and instructs the twin sisters to focus on rescuing the kidnapped people while he handles the rest. For a moment, Sora and Runa hesitate, worried about him going alone into unknown territory, but Rain apologizes, admitting that his plan has forced them to reveal their secret fairy magic to the world. However, the sisters assure him not to worry because they have complete faith in him and are equally messed up in their heads. With that, the group split up, each carrying out their own critical mission. Rain follows the potent, magical signature to a heavily reinforced door. He breaks the lock and opens it, and is shocked by what he finds inside. A young girl named Nina with a foxtail lies injured and chained on the floor, and he immediately recognizes her as a member of the fox spirit, a demigod species even stronger than a typical ultimate species. So, Rain quickly rushes to her side and casts a healing spell to mend her wounds, but Nina is filled with pent-up emotion. She starts crying as she tells him her name and collapses into his arms, overjoyed that someone has finally come to save her. A few minutes later, Nina begins telling him the horrifying story of her capture. A few years ago, Edgar and his goons approached her, but she refused to go with him. In response, he gathered all the innocent children from her orphanage and threatened to eliminate them one by one if she didn't surrender. With no other options, Nina decided to sacrifice her life to save her friends. Later, Edgar placed a powerful slave collar on her neck, sealing away her immense divine powers. Ever since that day, he has used Nina as his personal punching bag, who is forced to endure the humiliation. Horrified by her story, Rain vows to free her from the collar immediately. Nina warns him that it is impossible because the collar is protected by a deadly curse, and any attempt to remove it will result in a fatal backlash of magical energy. However, Rain extends his hand to remove this piece of technology from her neck. Even when Nina begs him to stop, Rain refuses to give up and tells her he wants to sniff her armpits later. So he channels all his taming energy, combined with the strength given to him by his friends, and focuses it all on the collar. The cursed magic electrocutes him, causing immense pain, but Rain pushes through the agony and shatters the spell, freeing Nina from her prison for the first time in years. Outside the mansion, the battle is going exceptionally well, as Kanahada and Tanya are effortlessly defeating Edgar's guards, treating the fight like a video game. The remaining soldiers, in a desperate move, try to use some of the terrified mansion staff as human shields, but before they can, a volley of fireballs rains down from the sky, incapacitating them all without harming the hostages. Just then, Sora and Runa appear, announcing that they have rescued all of the captives and have already teleported them to a safe location. Now that all the innocent people are out of the way, the girls no longer have to hold back their true power. Back inside, Rain's group reunites in the main hall to discuss strategy. Everyone is shocked to see a new chick on Rain's back, but Kanahada, captivated by her fluffy tail, immediately starts cuddling her. Just then, the Lord of the Mansion appears, shocked to find them so deep inside his home. Rain uses his gauntlet to restrain him, and Stella moves in to make the arrest like a top G. But before they can celebrate, Edgar makes his appearance. Without further ado, he activates the cursed ring, and a shadowy, grim, Reaper-like figure materializes from it. The Reaper swings its scythe, and a wave of dark energy hits Rain, who collapses to the ground. From a distance, Arios senses the ring's activation and smiles, believing his rival is finally eliminated. But a few seconds later, Rain sits up, acting like nothing ever happened. Everyone is stunned to see this because the Reaper had cast an instant death spell, which should have eliminated him immediately. So, to test her theory, Runa casts a powerful poison spell on Rain, which also has no effect on him. She then explains her suspicion. After forming a contract with the Fairy Sisters, Rain gained 2 new abilities. The first was the multi-spell casting ability, and the second, they now know, is a complete nullification of all magical powers. Meanwhile, Edgar is furious that his trump card has failed. But this anger feeds into the ring, and its vile power surges, eventually consuming Edgar in his entirety. His body is covered in a black, slimy substance, and he transforms into a grotesque, powerful demon. But Rain is frozen in fear as he recognizes the demonic presence. It's the same monster that destroyed his village and eliminated his family. The demon, now fully formed from what was once Edgar, looks down at Rain and his party with pure malice. It declares its intent to slaughter every last person in Horizon before flying off toward the city center. Rain knows he has to stop it because he cannot let the fate from his past repeat again. His friends offer their total support behind him, making him feel extremely proud of them. Nina also wants to join the fight, but Rain tells her she has been through enough and asks the girl to shut her trap and stay safe. On the other hand, the demon unleashes its power on the unsuspecting city, causing massive explosions that burn down streets and homes. Just as it prepares another blast, Kanahada launches herself from a rooftop, delivering a kick that sends the demon crashing to the ground. Within seconds, Rain and the rest of the party land around it, ready to take it down in a battle. The group attacks the monster in a perfectly coordinated storm of power, as if they learned it from Marvel movies. Kanade starts with a flurry of punches, knocking the demon toward Tanya, who smacks it down from the air. To amplify the damage, Rain uses his gauntlet to fire restraining shots, while Sora and Runa unleash a massive thunderbolt spell from above. The attack creates a huge crater, but when the dust settles, the demon walks out of it without a single scratch. Scoffing at their efforts, the demon summons a massive horde of monsters that swarm the streets and the skies. The girls immediately deal with the first wave of monsters, but the demon reveals that it can summon an infinite number of these creatures. Using the chaos, it lands a powerful blow on Kanade and manages to injure her. Tanya immediately provides cover with a torrent of her fire breath, holding the main demon back, while Rain rushes to heal Kanade's wounds. However, the demon has started getting bored with the game and unleashes its true power, launching a devastating magical bombardment into the sky. Fiery projectiles rain down across the entire city, recreating the same horrific scene of destruction that haunts Rain from his childhood. However, this memory pushes him over the edge, and Rain boosts the powers of his friends, and they all launch an even more powerful coordinated strike. Even then, their attacks fail to leave a single dent on the demon's body. Just then, the demon summons an even larger army, including powerful dragons. He then uses the dragons as a living shield while he continues the destruction of the city for no real reason other than cinematic value. This puts Rain in an impossible situation because he can't fight the demon and protect the thousands of citizens at the same time. But suddenly, Sora and Runa step forward with a brilliant solution. They offer to use their fairy magic to open a huge portal and teleport every single resident to a safe location outside the city. As they put their plan into action, Arios and the hero's party are wondering if they should take part in the fight. Mina pleads with him to help, but Arios coldly refuses, stating that their only mission is Demon King. In reality, he is happy to leave Rain die at the hands of the very demon that killed his family. Meanwhile, the twins find Stella and the Knights and begin coordinating a massive evacuation. At first, the terrified citizens are skeptical of the fairies, remembering old legends of their hatred for humans. But the hot dog vendor approaches them with a smile and walks towards the portal. He is then followed by the youngins and other people Rain has helped, convincing everyone to trust the twins. As all the townsfolk gather inside the circle, the teleportation begins, but just then the evacuation point is attacked. However, the adventurers of the Horizon Guild arrive just in the nick of time, answering Natalie's call to arms. Gantz is also with them, and he hands out his finest weapons for free to repay his debt to Rain. With that, they form a defensive line, holding back the horde or monsters and creating a path for Rain to focus on the demon. On the other hand, Rain knows he needs to get closer to the demon to land a decisive blow, but it's too far away. Tanya could carry him, but her dragon form would be a large target for the demon to attack, and the twins' teleportation magic is too slow for combat. Just when all seems lost, Nina arrives at the scene, determined to help Rain land a victory. She refuses to be a victim any longer and wants to help the one who saved her. So, Nina reveals her hidden demigod ability to transport anywhere in an instant. Now, the final plan is set. Kanahade and Tanya, backed by the adventurers, will hold off the endless horde of monsters. Rain and Nina will make a direct attack on the demon so the girl grabs onto his disgusting little arms, and they begin to teleport across the battlefield. The two start phasing through the chaos and narrowly dodge the demon's powerful energy blasts. As they close the distance, Rain boosts his own power, preparing for his most audacious move yet. He is going to attempt the ultimate taming feat, overriding the demon's control of his own summoned army. Suddenly, Rain lands on the demon's back and places his hands on him. A torrent of corrupt demonic energy flows into Rain, causing him excruciating pain. But the memories of his friends, of the family he has found, give him the strength to resist. At this point, Rain's taming power flares to an unimaginable level, and he successfully severs the demon's bond with his evil goons. With a final roar, Rain takes command of the entire dragon army, shocking the demon to its non-existent core. While the demon lord wonders what just happened, Rain commands the evil monsters to attack their former master. Within seconds, the so-called demon lord is annihilated by his own powerful offspring. With the battle finally over, Nina loses consciousness midair from sheer exhaustion. Rain catches her, but as they begin to fall from the sky, Tanya swoops in her dragon form to rescue them. They land safely on the ground, where the rest of the party, the knights, and the adventurers await the uninvited hero's return. A few days after the battle, the city of Horizon is in full recovery mode, buzzing with a newfound sense of hope. Nina, now safe and sound, tells Rain that she wants to stay with him and his friends, and officially join his party. Rain is hesitant at first, unsure if taming a demigod, a being of divine lineage, is even possible. However, when the girls rally around him, reminding him that he's already accomplished far greater and more impossible things, Rain decides to give it a shot. He performs the ritual, and in just a few seconds, he secures a fresh new cavity to insert his sausage. Kanade is thrilled to have a new, smaller sister. Tanya is eager to cuddle her and runs jokes that she's glad to have a new younger sister who isn't as grumpy as Sora. Later, when they visit the Adventurers Guild, they meet Stella, who reveals that she has been rightfully promoted the new captain of the Knights Order, ready to forge a new era of justice for the city. She thanks Rain profusely, stating that Horizon would have been destroyed without him. Natalie then gives Rain more good news. For his role in defeating the demon and saving the city, all the adventurers in the guild unanimously agreed that he deserved a special promotion. So, this piece of garbage is being jumped directly from E rank all the way to C rank. With their party now reaching its 6th member, Rain tells Natalie that their small hotel room is no longer practical. So Natalie cheekily suggests that instead of renting a larger room, they should just buy a house, secretly thinking it's the perfect way to keep her new star adventurer permanently settled in Horizon. The girls absolutely love the idea of having a real home where they can all live together, so Rain agrees to their demands like a simp. After looking at several disappointing properties, Natalie shows them the final option, a beautiful, spacious mansion with a huge yard and a massive bathtub, all for an unbelievably cheap price. Tanya is immediately suspicious of a deal that seems too good to be true, so Natalie reveals the catch. She claims that the house is haunted, which immediately terrifies Kanade, who is deathly afraid of ghosts. Natalie explains that the ghost mostly just plays harmless pranks like farting on their pillows, making the bathwater cold, or putting curry on the chair so it looks like you had an accident. While the others find this amusing, Kanade declares she would rather sleep outside. However, being the ringleader, Rain decides they should at least check it out before making a decision. They soon enter the dusty but surprisingly clean mansion. As they explore, Nina lets out a small sneeze, which makes Kanahada jump out of her skin. A moment later, the furniture begins to move on its own, and a ghostly voice warns them to get out, just when a spectral figure of a maid appears before them. The twins try to use their magic to exorcise her, but the ghost is agile and dodges their astral attacks. However, Tanya quickly realizes that the ghost has no offensive abilities, as its only power is to yell racial slurs at people. Knowing this, the ghost, whose name is Tina, decides to focus all her energy on the most vulnerable member of the group, Kanade. She corners the terrified cat spirit, but this turns out to be a massive mistake. Kaneda's fear reaches its absolute peak, and in a panicked frenzy, her instincts take over. As she lunges forward, her fear allows her to transcend her normal abilities, and her physical attack actually harms the ghostly form. Then the twins quickly create a magical barrier to trap Tina, and Rain steps in to calm the situation. He then reveals another one of his surprising skills he learned from an old man: how to tame phantoms. Rain demonstrates his power by taking control of Tina's movements, freezing her in place. Seeing no hope out of this, Tina tells them her story. She was a maid who worked in the mansion 30 years ago, but she was unalived by her cruel, womanizing master, and ever since that day, her spirit has been bound to the house. But instead of banishing her, Rain does something unexpected. He asks Kanahari if she thinks she could try to get along with Tina. Trusting him completely, Kaneda nervously agrees. So Rain turns to the ghost and asks if she would like to live with them as part of their party. Tina is stunned by his kindness, while the other girls smile like the Manchurian Candidate, explaining to her that this is just the kind of person Rain is. Touched by his offer, Tina happily agrees. In the meantime, Arios and the hero's party try to demand free supplies from a shopkeeper, but the man refuses, calling them cowards who did nothing while their city was under attack. Other citizens also join in, telling the so-called heroes to park their backsides somewhere else. When they claim that Rain is the true hero of Horizon, Arios gets furious and destroys the man's stall and storms off, filled with hatred for the beast tamer. Later that night, the new family gathers in their new home for their first meal together. Tina, Sora, and Runa have prepared a massive feast, and as they sit down, Nina looks at Rain with tears in her eyes and thanks him, saying that for the first time in a long time, she is no longer alone. Her words strike a deep chord within Rain. He remembers the crushing loneliness he felt after losing his family and his home, the empty hole that has been in his heart for years. He realizes that joining the hero's party was just a desperate attempt to escape that void. But now, looking around the table at his new family, he feels the warmth of true companionship. The hole in his heart is finally full, and overwhelmed with emotion, he starts to cry like Logan Paul. The girls notice this and ask him what's wrong, but Rain quickly plays it off, joking that he's extremely hungry. But deep down, he knows these are tears of pure joy for the new bonds he's created and the new family he can finally call his own. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down Magic Sausage. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.